Welcome. We are so happy to be here tonight. We're going to start right on time so we can get you out of here. We really appreciate you coming and taking your time to be with us tonight. We especially want to thank our candidates. They'll get introduced in a minute, but we're so grateful for their interest in the Gilbert Public Schools and wanting to run for the school board. We're very grateful for that and for their time and preparation for tonight. My name is Colette Evans. This is E.J. Anderson. We are co-chairs along with Paula Dubas, who is in the back. So, there you are. You're not in green, so I didn't see you. We're the co-chairs of Unite for Education. I'm just going to read you our mission statement. Unite for Education is an independent organization comprised of individuals with diverse political, religious, and professional backgrounds. We have united to advocate for children in Gilbert and East Mesa by supporting strong public education, positive leadership, and open dialogue within our community. And that basically says why we're here tonight is just to let the community know what's going on in education, that we have these fine candidates running, that we have 3 open slots, and hope to just bring education to the forefront of this election season. Just a couple of things about tonight. The candidates will afterwards be able to have their petitions for everybody to sign. You can only sign 3 because there are 3 slots. Anything over that, if you sign more than that, they will not be counted. Also, if you haven't had a chance, please sign in. We're also taking donations if you are willing to do that. And also, we want to be respectful of everybody's time, and so therefore, in between each of the questions, we ask that you please do not clap. Let's just get through. We have several questions. We want to have everybody have some nice time to get to their answers and get through everything that we have for tonight. So no clapping, just let us run through this, and you'll have some time at the end to ask them questions and get to know them off to the side. So is that it?
Good evening. It is with great pleasure I'm going to introduce our moderator tonight for our little forum. And Elaine Morrison, right here, is kind of a fixture in our community. She has lived here more than 33 years and served on the Gilbert School Board for more than 14 years. And she says, and I'm sure that's true, there's more than 12 schools in Gilbert who have her name on it. So we're really excited to have her here tonight. She has a doctorate from NAU in, I've got to remember, Humane Letters. So we want to welcome Elaine Morrison tonight.
Remember how there's no clapping. And that really is important. Everyone's a hero tonight. Your hero may become a villain to you if the answer is not something you find agreeable. So please sit on your hands as best you can, in fairness to everyone who answers. And what we'd like to do this evening is to start with candidate introductions. They've each been given 1 minute to do this. So we'll start with Mr. Reed Carr and just go on down the line.
Thank you, Elaine, and thank you to Unite for putting together tonight, and thank you for being here. As they said, my name is Reed Carr, and I'm running for school board. As way of background, I've grown up in a home that was focused on education, from my father, who taught at Rice University, to my stepfather and mother, who are both retired from the university setting. My wife was a certified teacher, and I've even had the chance to teach a couple of university-level courses, both as an instructor and as a visiting professor, or visiting instructor, I guess I should say. My wife and I moved to Arizona in '94 for education, to complete master's degrees, an MBA at ASU and an MIM at Thunderbird. We moved back and we chose Gilbert because of the reputation of its school system and because of the reputation as a community, family-oriented community. We've raised 4 children here, 3 of whom have graduated from Highland High, go Hawks, and 1 who is a junior here currently. I look forward to expressing my views and talking to you tonight. Thank you, and again, Reed Carr.
All right, my name is Rob Guderian. I moved here to the Valley just over 20 years ago to take a job, and prior to that, I had never been to Arizona. So it was a good experience for us. We also settled in Gilbert because it had a great reputation for a family community as well as education. And when we moved here, we didn't have any children. My wife was pregnant with our oldest. So I am the father of 3 daughters, all of whom have gone or currently attend Gilbert schools. One who is a class of 2014 graduate of Gilbert High School, and 2 more who are completing their sophomore year this year at Gilbert High. My background, education-wise, I am a statistician by training. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in statistics. Yes, there's more than just that class, if you ever took statistics. And I spent 20 years working for Intel Corporation in Chandler before switching industries last year and going to banking. I look forward to serving on the board. I'm passionate about education, have been involved as a volunteer in my children's school and on several school board committees. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be here in this forum tonight. I am very excited to be a part of this forum. To introduce myself, my name is Jenna Kryn. I'm a current resident of Gilbert, and I'm very interested in being involved in improving education for all of the students here in Gilbert. Professionally, I work for Arizona State University in a human resources role with a background in professional development. I'm also a student of Northern Arizona University working on my master's in education. My involvement in higher education in both of these settings has led me to a passion of education at all levels, not just higher education. And that's what's led me to be here tonight. I believe that my skills and experience are going to be a great match for the requirements of serving on the school board, and I look forward to the opportunity to really just improve education for the children of Gilbert.
My name is Ben Mitsuda. Thank you so much for having me here this evening. Just to introduce myself, my family, my wife and I moved to Arizona 10 years ago after I graduated from law school at BYU. We moved to Arizona because my wife, who is formerly a Shumway, is a native Arizonan, and because I accepted a position in Phoenix at the largest private law firm here in the state. We moved to Gilbert 6 years ago, and since then our 4 children have been attending GPS schools, which we've been incredibly impressed with. And we've also been very heavily involved in the community. For example, my wife helped with the bond override canvassing. I've also served as a Boy Scout troop leader and on the board of directors and as treasurer for a nonprofit local Arizona nonprofit corporation. 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to join Arizona State University as an associate general counsel, where I represent the university in a wide variety of legal issues, including corporate contracts, construction, and those type of matters. Thank you so much again for having me this evening.
Thank you so much for the invite. My name is Joey Nicita, and I am the father of 3 school-age kids here in the district. We moved here about 10 years ago, and we've been actively involved in the community, giving back to multiple schools for over the last 5 years. And over that time, we've talked to many, many parents and engaged with them on a lot of different levels on how we can, continue to build on the success that Gilbert Schools has had. And that ties directly into why I'm running for school board, and that's to represent parents and to provide a stronger voice for them in this district. There have been a few times where parents really have not been heard, and they've wanted to be heard more through the district, and I think that we can do more of that. They are the biggest stakeholders in the district, and we want to make sure that they've got that voice. So I'm running as a parent to represent parents for school-age kids in this district, and we're going to proactively engage parents and collaborate with them as we make this district even better than it already is. And that's why I'm running for governing board.
Thank you. My reason for running for this governing board in Gilbert is very simple. I love Gilbert Public Schools. I spent 39 out of my 44 years in public education in Gilbert. I've seen it grow from a sleepy farming community in 1971 to the dynamic district it is today. My life has been touched in more ways than I can ever express by the children, families, faculty, and staff of this great community through the years. Having spent 17 years as an elementary and junior high teacher in both regular ed and special ed, I have an understanding of what it means to be a teacher. I also served as the president of the Gilbert Education Association, and I was an elementary principal for 21 years at Gilbert Elementary. In July of 2015, I retired as the superintendent of the Douglas Unified School District and moved back home to Gilbert, even though Douglas was my home, but I consider Gilbert it now. I believe that all of these experiences gives me the knowledge and skills to be a member of the governing board. I understand the role of a board member in a district and the responsibilities it entails. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Lily Tram, and I'm currently the president of the Gilbert Public Schools Governing Board. I am honored to be serving my 9th year on the school board this year. As a school board member, my focus is on school achievement and to provide the best education for all Gilbert Public School students so that they have the skills and the foundation for lifelong learning and to also be career and college ready as they leave our high schools. On a personal note, I am married and I have 3 children. 2 have graduated from GPS. I have 1 in high school. I am a native of Arizona and I am a proud graduate of public school education here. I have worked at Arizona State University for 27 years. I am currently the Director of Financial Services. I have, with my financial and accounting background and in higher education, and along with my current serving on the board, I believe that this qualifies me as a good candidate for this year's school board election. Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, for the first question of the evening, we'll begin with Rob Guderian. All of you will have an opportunity to answer this one, of course, but we'll start with Rob and then move down to Jenna and end with you, Reed. So, what is the role of a board member, Rob, and specifically, what is the working relationship between the superintendent and the governing board?
Well, my answer to that question is, as a board, we are to provide direction and set policy for the district and work with the superintendent so that she can go and execute, or he, so that the superintendent can go execute to that policy and that direction that the board sets. The superintendent is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the schools, where the board takes a more strategic view to represent the community and the state and to make sure that the education happens in the district.
I agree, and I think that most importantly, as a school board member, the priority is setting the vision for the school district. As he said, it would be a more strategic overview of exactly what the district is going to be moving towards, working in partnership with the superintendent. I think that the superintendent is to provide a large amount of information that would help the school board to make the best possible decisions, but together, coordination between the school board and the superintendent will really benefit the district in moving forward towards their goals.
Well, it's a good question. I think that, obviously the role of a governing board of a school district set forth in statute, but I guess in my mind, apart from that, the main role and the reason why they're elected by the citizens of the school district is because they're there to represent the interests of both the community as well as the children in the school district. Obviously, they, as was said, they set the policy, they institute the vision, and they set those overarching goals at the kind of the 30,000-foot level, whereas the superintendent and other administrators then go and implement that policy. The other thing I think, from my perspective, that I view the role as a board member is they're there to advocate on behalf of both the employees of the district and the students. They're there to do all that they can with respect to working in the community to raise funding and increase student achievement. And that's kind of my view. Thank you.
Well, I think, we've already heard a lot of great answers. There's no question about it. And vision is a part of it. Representing the community is certainly a part of that. And governing and policy, it's all a part of it. But at the end of the day, I think that we're all elected officials. And we are voted in. And when we are voted in by the constituents, we want to make sure that we are representing that voice. And we want to make sure that there's a collaborative effort with the community of understanding what is best for them, especially when it comes to education, because again, at the end of the day, the parents really understand what's best for their children. So as governing board, we want to make sure that we understand what those parents are thinking, and do we have that open dialogue with them. So I think representation really is what it's all about.
Thank you. I really agree with just about what everybody else has said. I think the key factor is open communication and good communication between the superintendent and the board, and also the board and the community. And I think that the board serves as, like it was said, an advocate for the children and for the families, and can assist the superintendent in terms of knowledge of the community. It's also, I think, policy is huge, and setting policy and working through all of the issues that are incumbent to what we're dealing with today are monumental. And I think because of the election, the people are elected to the board, so they have to represent everyone.
This is what's great going last, because everything good that's been said, I just don't have to, I can say ditto. However, as a board member, we all take an oath to serve for the welfare of all of our students' education. So each board member has their own opinions, but we work together as one board to serve our community and our district, with the relationship and working together with our superintendents, along with all of our districts and our partnership with our community, for the best quality education for our students to meet all the needs that they need. Thank you.
I agree with much of what has been said, but I think it's important that we recognize that the primary reason that we've created public schools in our country is for the betterment of our communities. We believe that by educating the next generation, it will improve our country and it will improve our lives. And so we elect members of the community to collectively represent the community in that mission. Yes, we have statutory responsibilities to prescribe and enforce policy. Yes, we have the obligation to represent not just parents, but all community members. But ultimately, we collectively create policies and allocate budget, create a mission plan, or create a strategic plan that goes towards the aim of improving our society through improving the education of our children.
Thanks very much, all of you. Jenna, we'll let you field the second question. What do you consider to be the most important attributes of a good board member? And how do your particular skills, education, and experience prepare you to make a positive impact on the Gilbert Public Schools Governing Board?
Thank you. I think that one of the most important attributes of a school board member would be an open mind and a willingness to consider multiple priorities. So, as has been mentioned already several times, everyone has an opinion, and it's important to hear all those opinions, not only of the school board, but also of the community. It's also important to research and analyze the data that would be received as well. So I think that in my experience, both from my education and from my professional background, in human resources, you are constantly having to consider multiple different perspectives to every issue. There's no one right answer, as much as you might like there to be. Considering all those different possibilities, I think is probably the most important attribute to being a good school board member, and I think that I'd be well suited to do that.
I think that harkening back to one thing that was said earlier is I agree that communication is so crucial for a board member. And I think that is a huge attribute that's necessary, both to be able to work together as a board and create that harmony so that you're all working towards the same vision, but also then to communicate that vision and those objectives to both the community and to the district. And so I think that's a huge attribute that's required. In addition, I agree with what you said, that the vision and the objectives need to be based on science and data, and that's a huge need as well. With respect to my experience, I have served on a wide variety of different positions with respect to serving clients. I've served on a board of directors. I feel like I do have that ability to communicate, work together with others, and to help push forward that vision. Thanks.
I would agree that, certainly communication is really important. Beyond that, transparency as well is really important for both, not only within the board members, but also within the community and the parents involved. Let's be honest, it is an incredibly challenging position for these board members. So, I truly commend anybody who's served on this board. It's not easy. And there are times where they take a lot of flack because they have to listen to a lot of us sometimes and our displeasure. And it's not easy. It really isn't. So being able to communicate with the community and also and being transparent is important. In terms of what I can bring, hopefully that transparency. I'm pretty open in terms of how I feel about things. And I do challenge people in certain occasions. But also, I am transparent, and I think that that's what I will always bring to the board. Thanks.
Thank you. I think the very most important quality is listening and being able to listen to the stakeholders. And I also believe that you have to have a total open mind. There are so many issues that come up, and if you make up your mind before you've listened to everyone, then I believe that's a mistake because there's so many sides to a story and so many sides to an issue. And I absolutely believe that you have to listen to everyone and then make that decision that you have to make. And I agree with you, Mr. Nicita, is that correct? Yes. It's so difficult because sometimes a lot of people don't have all the information, and I think it's absolutely important that board members read all of their material and so on, and you know how much that is. So thank you. I have a lot of time on my hands. I'm retired now, so I have plenty of time to do all those things. Thank you.
Thank you. I think one of the most important attributes for being a board member is the passion for education. Not only do you come in with that passion, you come in with integrity and ethics, because you are here without an agenda. You're here to serve the community and the students. I've been on the board for several years now, and I think that qualifies, I feel that qualifies me as a school board member. There's lots of ups and downs and challenges the last few years, and you just got to keep your focus to advocate for the students.
A sense of humor. You've got to be able to laugh at yourself. I mean, let's face it, we've all sat in the meetings, and there are times when we take it way too seriously. It doesn't mean it's not serious issues, but I agree with everyone who said listen, listen, listen. But let's not forget that a lot of the issues that have arisen on this board is because we aren't good at communicating. We have to be able to articulate what we need. As I look at it, I've shown over the last few years at various school functions, at involvement with school-related things, but also in boardrooms where I sit on multiple boards, including nonprofit boards and for-profit boards. In work experience, the ability to bring people together through finding commonality and then using data with that and applying judgment. And if we do those things, we can most often find acceptable solutions. Sorry.
I get to go last. I do agree with almost everything that's been said. I do believe that some of the most important characteristics and attributes of a school board member would be collaborating with each other, collaborating with the superintendent, and collaborating with the community to make sure those voices are all heard, as well as communication. Agree that communication within the board and also back out to the community so that they understand what's going on. There's a large percentage of our school community out there that is not aware of what the board does until it kind of blindsides them. And that's honestly one of the reasons I got involved, was I had no idea how this all works. So communicating outward is a great characteristic of a school board member. Personally, my background in data and making database decisions and knowing how to cut to the quick of the numbers and the data and what it really means, and being able to make dispassionate decisions so that we're relying on the data to drive what we need to do and not getting emotionally involved in the issues is what I could bring to the school board. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben, you're up. Our next question, what do you see as the biggest challenge facing Gilbert Public Schools today, and what will you do as a board member to resolve it?
I think there's a lot of challenges in this day and age. I think just based on what I have seen, one of the biggest challenges facing not only this district but all districts in Arizona is simply the funding. Based on the statistics that you see, I know I've seen various ways to calculate it. Arizona is consistently ranked in the low 40s with respect to funding on a per student basis. I mean, that's simply unacceptable. I know there's a current proposition that will improve that somewhat. Again, going back to what I believe is important, I think district board members have an obligation to advocate for their districts and their communities and their students. And that would be one thing that I would like to focus on, is to see what we can do to both increase that and work with the state and others to increase funding.
Well, I know you asked for one, but I'm going to give two. I'm going to give a 1 and a 1A. One is definitely charter schools. I think the competition with charter schools has been really, really tough for Gilbert Public Schools. We've lost a lot of students to charter schools, so there's got to be something done there. I know that Gilbert Public Schools is certainly doing their due diligence, and there's some things happening right now where they're polling some families that have left to find out why they have left, to improve our capture rate, which is really critical, because as we know, the population of school-age kids here in Gilbert is actually increasing. So we know students are here in Gilbert, but we know there's a lot of competition. So what we need to do is figure out a way to keep them here. It's the old adage for recruitment in sports. It's keep your kids in your backyard. Don't let the Arizona kids go to UCLA, right? So we've got to do the same thing here, and we've got to do more of that. So we need to understand why people are staying just as much as why people are leaving. So we've got to compete with those charter schools. Thank you.
I think funding is absolutely the biggest issue that we have to deal with, not just here in Gilbert, but throughout the state. And I know one of the concerns that I have is the proposition that, or the proposal that we will be doing current year funding next year, and I believe it's still, as the legislature has not made a decision one way or the other on that, or they haven't taken it back yet, and I think that's scary. But I think prioritizing spending is going to be key, because the funding isn't there, and so we have to do with what we have the best that we can. Now, I do want to say that I have been so amazed at the group of people that came together in this community to get the override and the bond passed so that there is additional funding for our students, and I think it's a wonderful commentary for the community that Gilbert is.
Thank you. I'll have to agree also. Funding is the biggest challenge for districts, not only here in Gilbert, but across our state. Not only is it, we did pass the election for the bond and override, and we're grateful for that. And we're able to do much more with that. However, with the challenges coming up of our current funding model, which hopefully that will be corrected, if it could be, because that will actually have a drastic impact to the funding that we have here, because there is a drop in enrollment in the district, and our trends are showing that the drop of enrollment at Gilbert Public Schools, which means less funding for our district. So our focus would have to be, if that does go in that direction, that there'll have to be priorities on the items that we have coming forth. Where do we have to make some adjustments to meet the budget that we have? Thank you.
If I have to put it in one word, it'd be retention. And that is both teacher retention and student retention. I have a growing concern as I talk with teachers who communicate that they're very happy that the override passed, but they still don't feel empowered at their schools. And we're seeing teachers, I'm aware of one teacher who recently said she's retiring, not because she has to, but because she sees enough challenges, this is time to move on. When we have good teachers that are saying that, we still have a problem, and we need to address that not just with pay, but also culturally and understand why. We've talked about student retention. Other candidates have talked about student retention. That goes hand in hand with funding. If we don't understand why parents, and it's parents who are choosing to change where their kids go to school, if we don't understand why parents are removing kids and going to charter schools and other schools, we're not going to address the issues of retaining students, and we're going to lose additional funding or not gather additional funding.
I would have to say that the biggest issue facing Gilbert Public Schools right now is retention, school choice. Arizona is a top state in the nation for school choice, and parents definitely have that opportunity to take their children wherever they want to go to school. I think the big challenge now is to make Gilbert Public Schools the choice and not just the default. And we have a lot of data to do that. We've had demographic studies for well over a year now that we've commissioned to do, and we know what the issue is. We do great. We compete just great at the junior high and high school level with these charters, but at the elementary school level, it's those demographic studies have shown that's where we're bleeding out students. That's where parents are making the choice to take their kids out of the district. And so we need to focus, use the data that we've paid for as a district and focus on those issues and make sure our solutions match what the data says the problem is and not go off on solutions that might not fix the root cause of the problem. Thank you.
I think that the two answers we've kind of heard from everyone so far are a change in demographics and a change in where students are choosing to go to school or families are choosing to go to school and funding. Personally, I think that the two go hand in hand and sort of become one large challenge for the district. Reacting to both of them is going to be the best way to move forward. In many of your introductions, you said that you chose to come to Gilbert with your families because of the schools here. So I think that there is that very strong background of education here in Gilbert. And I think that the school board, together with the superintendent, has done a lot so far to add those choices here in the school district so that families do not feel they have to move, go to a charter school or make a different decision. Again, with the limited funding, I think that becomes very challenging, but prioritizing the funding in order to make sure that parents and families are staying in the district as best as possible would be the biggest challenge.
Okay, Joey, we'll ask you to start off with this question. Quite simply, did you support the Gilbert Public Schools bond and override in 2015 and the override in 2013? And whether you answer yes or no, we'd like to know your reasons for so doing.
At that point, I did not support the override. I thought there was a lot of contention on the governing board at that time, and I thought that they would probably struggle with how that money would be spent. And also, the administration was kind of in a transition period. And again, we just didn't understand where the focus would be with that money. So I did not support it at that time because I didn't have a clear indication on what it would be spent on.
I beg your pardon. In which year? Just for clarity.
Oh, I'm speaking of the most recent one.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Was it 2013 that you asked the other one? Okay. I was not here in 2013, but I would have supported it. And I absolutely supported the past one. I voted yes for both of them. I worked with a group of people going door to door. And I believe that you always support public education. I think that's what's made our country what it is today, is public schools. And I was told by my mother many years ago, you vote yes no matter what. So I did. I did what my mother told me to do.
Thank you. Yes, I supported both of those overrides in the bond from this past election. It was much needed in both years. We just had budget challenges in both years with the increase in cost of healthcare, with not being able to provide salary increases to our employees, which is important, with meeting the needs of our schools, supplies, budgets, facilities. There's lots of needs that we did not have the funding for. So I'm very happy that we were able to have a successful election this past year.
I supported both the override in 2013 and the most recent override. In 2013, I publicly endorsed it and put my name out there. And the last override and bond, I spent considerable amount of time looking at the numbers, crunching the numbers, looking at the budget, comparing the numbers to other school districts, understanding how they apply, and sharing that information with many other people. And so I feel like I was very actively involved in supporting both overrides.
I actually did not support the overrides, and I'll tell you why. I believe that, and I agree that funding for education is important. However, we are all taxpayers on the other side of that as well, too. And as a community member, I'm keenly aware of what that does to our individual tax rates and looked at what the overall funding picture was in the state. And I believe that there are a lot of efficiencies that can be gained without constantly going back to the voters. And as a board member, I would work to make our district more efficient and get the biggest bang from the buck that we can. I understand that there are times when bonds and overrides are needed, and in those cases I would support them if they had clear definitions for what they were going to be used for. But for the latest bond issue specifically, I did not like the vagueness of the wording in the last bond. It was very open-ended as to what the district was actually going to use the money for. And I believe as a board member, we need to be very transparent and tell the community specifically what they're going to get for their money.
Being relatively newer to Gilbert, I will be honest and say that I have not previously been as educated or involved in the local politics setting, local election setting. At that time, I did not know quite as much as I do now about the bond and override process. Looking back now, the information that I have read on it, I certainly would support it. And given the chance again, I would vote yes. I think that the funding that came in is for very critical purposes for the school district. And I certainly think that voting yes would be worth it to improve the system.
I did support both. My family was very active in supporting this last election and going door to door and distributing signs and things like that. I supported them especially because, as I alluded to earlier, the state has failed to appropriate the proper amount of money for education in the state. And we know that because a court of law has issued an opinion saying that, and gave the school districts a judgment against the state for a substantial amount of money for that. So we know that the funding has fallen short. And so the bond override, although not enough, was certainly necessary to continue the high quality of education here in Gilbert. That being said, I do want to say that we've been tremendously impressed with the efforts and what students or teachers especially have been able to accomplish in this district without that level of support and funding.
Thank you. Sheila, we'll ask you to start the next question, please. Every once in a while, there may be a conflict arising within the community. Sometimes it's between administrators and teachers. Sometimes it's between community members and board members and teachers and administrators. Even in our utopian Gilbert, these things do happen. They have been known to occur. So, what we'd like to know from all of you is how you would resolve an issue in Gilbert Public Schools when there are conflicting views in the community. And possibly you could give an example of something you have done in your past or something that would serve as an example to show a productive way to resolve conflict.
I would have to go first on this one. Once again, I believe it gets down to listening and communicating and being open to listening to all sides of the issue. I spent 44 years dealing with conflict, and right now I can't think of a specific example of it. But whenever you work with people, you're going to have to deal with different issues with people. That's just the way it is. Whether it's children. Actually, I know I don't have enough time for this. I do have a story, but I don't have enough time for it. So, I think just listening. I'd like to give an example, but it took me. Hopefully, you can think of one before. Sorry. If you can come back to me at the end, I can give you a lot of examples. I'll have time to think about it by then.
Thank you. I think one of the things that Sheila mentioned is you really have to listen. Listen to your community, listen to the parents, listen to the employees and your fellow board members. You listen, open ear. However, you do have to do your research. You do have to gather data. You have to ask questions. And you have to make a decision based off of the facts that you have. No pressure from others, no threats from others. There have been lots of examples that I can give throughout the past 9 years or 8 years. Throw one out that's not as controversial. Lumps for bumps. Remember the T-shirts that we had, the pink T-shirts with the bumps and lumps. We had that. We also had the change in the school time for high school. We changed it up by, I think, 10 minutes or 5. It wasn't very much, but definitely that was a big challenge. You listen, you explain, and provide the information that you can so that they understand what you're doing.
When conflicts arise, one of the first things you have to do is remain calm. When you react in a position with the emotion that others have, you only escalate the issue. So the first thing you have to do is remain calm and understand the timing of the concern. Some issues you want to resolve immediately, but they take time. And so you need to learn the difference. But yes, you have to listen, and you have to listen to all sides. I'll give an example of a political conversation I was in a few years ago, actually in the house of Jen Daniels, who I see in the back, one election night, and was sitting with some friends who were Republicans, and they were making some comments, and I said, we actually have a lot in common with the Democrats. And the person responded almost with awe that I would make that statement. And she goes, give me one example. And I said, we want to eliminate poverty. Well, I said, don't you want to eliminate poverty? I'd like to see it gone. Well, yeah, but I said, now, where we may differ is what the role of government is. But from there, the conversation started on common ground instead of on the differences.
I agree with a lot of what's been said. I think to resolve some of these conflicts, communication is key. But it has to start with everybody making sure they understand why we're in this conflict anyway. What is the situation that got us here? What is the problem statement that's driving this? Because my experience, at least in Gilbert Public Schools, has been a lot of people come on board later and they miss that whole driver. So going back and communicating to the public, to the stakeholders, what is the problem statement? What are we trying to solve? Here's the background information. And then letting the data speak for itself. I've done that over and over and over in my career, where once everybody's on board with what the problem statement is and what we're trying to achieve, you can use the data to resolve some of the emotions and take some of the emotion out of that. And if everybody's on board with what the problem statement is, that usually helps quite a bit to ease some of the tensions.
I'm sure I've taken a class on conflict resolution at some point, but we'll just go off of opinions since I don't have my notes in front of me. No, I think that, as everybody has mentioned, listening is, of course, key to conflict resolution, but I think that the important aspect of listening is that it is with an open mind, as has been mentioned. So it's not just listening as you're thinking about what you're going to say next, it's listening to actually try and empathize and understand with what the other person is trying to say. Whether that person is 100% in agreement with what you're saying or completely on the opposite end, there has to be some commonality. Again, working in human resources, I have been involved in many employee relations investigations, many employee disputes, and I think that there's always some truth to what everybody's saying, and being able to listen to what they're saying and understand their point is the only way to resolve any kind of conflict.
Well, as an attorney, conflict's kind of my bread and butter. I agree with everything that's been said. I mean, conflict, especially when you're talking about it in terms of between a board and a community or between members of the board, that we're all really have the same goal, right? And so I really believe that when that's the situation, conflicts mainly arise because of a failure for one party or another to understand the reasoning or the thoughts of the other party. And so that's why I think everyone's agreeing that communication and listening is so crucial to resolving those conflicts. If we can understand the reasons behind things, if we can understand where people are coming from, it can diffuse so many of those things. I've been involved in many mediations and arbitrations and trying to help people come to a compromise that everyone can live with, maybe not that everyone's happy with, but that ultimately advances everyone's goals. Thank you.
Well, I can tell you firsthand that I've certainly been involved in some conflicts with certain board members, and I will also tell you that with these issues there's a lot of passion, and sometimes passion can bring out some good in people, and it can also bring out some bad in people. And I was really hard on a certain board member, and it was unjust, and I was lucky enough that one day I ran into her at the Gilbert Historical Museum, and we were face to face, and I looked her in the eye and I shook her hand and I said, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for how hard I was on you, because it wasn't right, it was wrong, and I learned from it. But I have a lot of passion, and sometimes passion does get a little bit of you. But I'll tell you this, I learned from it, and I understand mistakes too. And great leaders understand when they make mistakes, and they have no problem owning up to it.
Thank you all. All right, Lily, we will ask you to begin this next question and ask the rest of you to assume the chair of a board member currently, such that you can answer appropriately. As a board member, what are your ideas for promoting community engagement to support the district?
Community engagement to support the district. Well, we've done some things over the last year or so since our new superintendent has been placed. And we created a strategic operating plan, which is a 3-year plan, and there's items in there where we have the focus. So building the partnerships with our community members, with our business partners, with other higher educational facilities out there. Building programs, reaching out to the religious faith and reaching out to higher ed, building those relationships with them, whether it's here in Gilbert or throughout the state. Taking that, and also with our parents and our community members, is creating those other groups so that they can get engaged with what's going on in the schools and bringing in their ideas so that we can build more vision and more goals into our district.
One of the roles of any board member, regardless of a public entity or private, is that you're an ambassador of the organization. One of the things an ambassador does is they go out into another country, another community, and I think that we need, and I said this previously a couple of years ago, we need our board members to be more available to everyday conversations. And there are many of the board members do a great job of that. That's not intended to criticize. But I threw out the idea, and I would commit to this idea, that if I'm a board member, I would commit to having one open forum every month where people can approach me, ask questions, I can resolve those, or in many cases not resolve them, but at least commit to come back and find more information so that we can answer their questions. But we need to be out in the community representing GPS.
I'm going to tie my answer back to what I think one of the biggest challenges that faces GPS is right now, and that's student retention. And I think, Reed, you may have been the one that said this, but I'll say it again. Students don't choose to go somewhere else. Their parents do. And I think communication with the parents is the key point. It can't be overemphasized enough. It can't be communicated enough. We need to go with multiple avenues of communication to secure parental engagement. Because like I say, I think I represent a typical parent experience, which is my eyes kind of glaze over when you talk strategic plan until it impacts me. And so if we can be proactive in communicating with the parents and getting them on board about what's in store for them and their school, what is the future for their specific students in their path at Gilbert Public Schools? It's email, it's forum, it's survey, it's share the data. It's got to be proactive to get out there and get the parental engagement. Thanks.
I think that as I've been considering running for this position. I've done a lot of research, and I've learned a lot more about what it is to be on a school board and just what the climate here in Gilbert is a little bit more. A couple of things that I found interesting that are opportunities for parents to be very involved are being part of committees that board members are on and being able to voice your opinions in meetings and being able to really be a part of that process. I think that another thing that I read that I found very interesting is on the Arizona School Board Association website. It mentioned your personal life, and it mentioned that as a school board member, you are a school board member all day long, not just at the meetings that you go to. Parents recognize you and want to speak to you, and that's not something that I had necessarily considered, but something that I think is great and something that I think should not just be mentioned as part of the process, but actually be a large part of the process. And I think being open to that and open to different ideas and following up on those ideas is critical.
You know, I first of all, I'd just say I think the district does do a really great job of communicating to parents that are willing to be involved. You know, we were at the student achievement event last night for Neely for my daughter, and they just did a wonderful job, I felt, of showing what a fabulous job they do there and what a fabulous job the students do. I would agree that it's crucial in this day and age, given the challenges that we're facing, that that the board focus on retention and holding on to those students and bringing those students, or especially parents, as was said, having parents choose Gilbert schools. And I think that there's every reason to choose Gilbert schools. I mean, I've done a lot of research as a parent as to Gilbert school standings in relation to a lot of the other charter schools, and there's so much that can be talked about and can be advertised and put forth as just the stellar education that kids receive here.
Well, the only reason I'm sitting here rather than sitting out there is because that's a big initiative. I think that we've got to collaborate with parents more, and a diverse amount of parents in the district. Not just the same parents over and over again. We need to get newer ones involved, and we need to make sure that we're having those conversations because, as I said in my opening statement, they are the biggest stakeholders in this district, and they know what's best for their kids. So we have to make sure that they've got a voice in how we're crafting what the education looks like in our district. We're an A+ rated district. We're doing some really good things. Some of the committees that we're creating right now that are including parents and principals to create a lot of magnet programs are a really good thing. We just want to make sure that we get the right parents involved and it's not just the same parents over and over again. We want newer parents, parents that want to be involved in this decision-making process. So clearly, I'm a big fan of, parent involvement and being able to communicate with them. And I do think it's important for the board to get out and meet the parents and have conversation with them. That should be happening daily. But in addition to that, we need to make sure that we're getting more parents involved in some of these committees that's shaping the future.
Thank you. Visibility and availability, I think, are key. And I'm going to get back to what I absolutely believe in more than anything that I can ever preach is relationships. And I think relationships are the key to whatever happens in a district and an organization of any kind. Now, I know that there's 30,000+ students in this district. There's no possible way that you can have a relationship with everyone. But you can get out and you can get involved. And I think the board should a board member needs to understand the Teachers Association, the classified workers, the bus drivers, the cafeteria workers, and also the students. We've been talking a lot about the parents, but we're all here because of the children. And I can't tell you, when you go out to a school, and I know many of you do, when kids are glad to see you, there's no better feeling in the whole world than that.
Thank you. I hope you'll agree that our candidates have been marvelously respectful of the 1-minute limit. Would you go for one more question this evening? I see a lot of heads nodding. All right. Okay, our timekeeper says absolutely, it's fine. All right, true confessions, I will tell you, there were times I grocery shopped out of town so I could get the milk home in less than 2 hours. It's true. But I digress, and the questions are for you. So, Reed, you haven't fielded a question yet as the primary answer person. So let me ask, what specific goals might you have in mind for Gilbert Public Schools?
My goals really have not changed over the years, so I'm going to repeat what I have said previously publicly. One of the things that we need to focus on is increasing the STEM, and let me change that to the STEAM focus. Those of you who are not familiar with STEM, it stands for science, technology, engineering, and manufacturing, or mathematics, excuse me. I come from a manufacturing background. And mathematics, and they've added the A so we don't leave out the arts, because the arts do add a creativity. I firmly believe that if we're to prepare our children to be successful in the next economic cycle, they have to have not just a knowledge, but an applicable knowledge. So I said that a couple of years ago, and I'll continue to say that. We need to focus on those STEAM items.
I'll have a few, but let me pick a top one, which I think would be at the elementary level, which is where the data says that we're losing our most students, where we have the biggest opportunity for retention to make Gilbert Public Schools the choice, which is to create another Neely Academy out on the east side of town. Two of my children went through Neely Traditional Academy for their elementary school education and had a fantastic experience there. Those types of specialty academies are ones that can compete well with the charters in the district, and so I would make that one of my top goals.
I think that my top goal would be surrounding curriculum development, both within the standard classrooms and within the choice options that are available within the district. Ensuring that our curriculum is up to date, technologically advanced, relevant, and exactly what our students need to be successful would be the most important priority to me.
I think that my priority would be, and I am passionate about education, and I truly believe that education, and not just secondary education, but higher education is crucial both for our society and for individuals to succeed in life. And I think my priority and goal would be to improve and help prepare students to not only succeed and excel here, but to be ready and to be prepared to exceed at the next level, to be ready for college.
The first priority needs to be redrawing boundaries. We have sat on this for years. There's been growth. Tremendous growth in Gilbert to the east and to the south, and it's time that we do this. We've talked about it. We've had committees about it. I sat on a surplus committee that was the first priority when we got off of that committee, and I think that was 2013. And we got out of it saying we really need to redraw boundaries. So that is critical. We've got to do that. And secondly, I think it's capture rate. We've got to keep the kids in our backyard. So let's recruit them, let's keep them. So boundaries and capture rate would be my two priorities.
I think Gilbert is a fabulous district, and I think that, like with anything, though, it can always be better. And I would like to be able to work to make it better. I think one of the key goals that we should have is our teachers and retaining quality teachers, because I think that is absolutely the first and foremost way that we can keep our schools the way we want them to be and our academics the way that we want them to be when we have high quality teachers. And we have to pay them well and we have to treat them well. So that would be one of my goals.
Thank you. I agree. A lot of the goals that have been mentioned should be worked on. Over the last year or so, we've worked on some goals similar to this. So technology, I believe that technology is important in our district because we need to keep up with other schools and other students internationally and nationally. Also, academies. I know that word's been thrown out quite a bit. Academies doesn't really mean another GCA academy. It's more of like what is the focus that we can give those students in that school, like a magnet school. It's giving a program to them. So, for example, another technology base, such as at Harris Elementary, and maybe it can go on to the next level at junior high and the next level in the high school. So it provides them the skills that they need if they want to pursue that career in the future, or provide them the education if they want to move on into higher ed.
Thank you very much. Keep the mic, Lily. We're going to start our wrap-up this evening, and out of the generosity of the timekeeper's heart, he's decided that you may take up to
Thank you.
2 minutes to do this. So with that, if you could begin, and we'll just come on
Great.
down the line. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity this evening. As you all know, Gilbert Public Schools is a reputable and very outstanding school district here in the East Valley. We have amazing students. We have exceptional teachers, staff, and administration here at the district. Student achievement is my passion, and it's the focus, because every child deserves a quality education. So during my tenure as a board member here, there's been lots of changes over the years. There's been some exciting things, such as opening a brand new high school, hiring a new superintendent, establishing a new 3-year strategic plan, putting more technology in the classroom, and the successful election of the bond and override. There has been some challenging years, definitely. We all feel it in our community. The drastic budget reduction that we had a few years ago, it's about $30 million if you want to round up. Also, the reduction in force because of that budget reduction, and the loss of many of our employees to other districts that are surrounding us. However, one thing that hasn't changed is the excellent education that Gilbert Public School provides to all of our students. Since I have the extra time, I'm going to share some of the highlights or just proud moments of being a board member. So kind of think with me and imagine being there for the first day of school, taking that tour bus, arriving at the schools and just seeing the students from K through 6, junior high and high school, and everyone's excited about attending classes. And you think, this is why I'm here. It's a proud moment. And then also think about attending high school graduation. And you see all the graduates in the audience, and you're there waiting to shake their hands and congratulate them. They're just so excited. And to hear their achievements over their past 4 years in high school when they do their speeches. And to see their loved ones in the audience over there smiling and just looking at them. And also, when you drive by and you see a GPS school bus, or if you see a school, you're very proud because that's what you're here for. So by working together as a governing board and with the superintendent and GPS employees, we all have the same objective of student achievement. So I'm just going to stop there. I appreciate your continued support for me. Thank you. Oh, I'm going this way? Okay.
I believe that our country is what it is today because of public education. And I think I know every child deserves the very best education possible. I will use every resource, past experience, and future learning experiences to ensure that our children will be provided with the very best education that is possible. I have dedicated my life to being an advocate for children, and I feel that I have the time now to do it in a different way. And I would really like to have that opportunity. And I listened to what Lily said. One of the things that meant the very most to me when I was the superintendent in Douglas was giving the diplomas to all of the high school kids. That was just an amazing experience. And since I've been back the last 8-9 months, I've had the opportunity to visit with many people, many students that I had when I taught, who are now adults and have children in the district. Many of the former teachers that I've worked with are new, former classified classified employees, and a lot of parents. And it really is a wonderful community. And I would like to be able to participate and give back to this community. And like I said, I have plenty of time.
Well, thanks for the opportunity for the invite tonight, and it's been a remarkable event. You guys did a great job last year as well. Really well done. And the only thing I'll say is that, we're all proponents of public education, and that's why my wife and I moved here with no children 10 years ago, and now we have 3 kids in Gilbert Public Schools. And, we don't plan on going anywhere. We love this district. We're going to fight hard for it, and, what we believe is right for it. And that includes, from our perspective, really redrawing boundaries at this stage, and again, the capture rate. Because we heard a lot of people talk about tonight, we need more funding. And the best way to control the funding is to keep the kids in the district. That gives us more funding. That provides us more opportunities to get more money for this district. And there's a lot of ways to do that. I've been in marketing and advertising for a very long time, and one thing that we do is we focus on the strengths. And that's what we do when we look at brands. And this is no different. So while we want to take a look at why we're losing people, it's more important to take a look at why people are staying. That's really important, and we need to hone in on that. So we need to make sure we're focusing in on that and really broadening those experiences so that everybody is aware of it, so that the kids who are coming up, and we talked about it earlier, that the demographic reports show that school-age kids are growing in this district. We know they're here. Let's keep them here. So there's opportunities to do that, and it would be my number one focus to make sure that we are keeping kids in this district.
I believe that public education is an investment, and it's one of the most important investments we can make as a society and as a community. And it pays off both in the short and long term. Many of us up here have said, and I'm sure for many of you, the reason we're here in Gilbert and the reason my family moved to Gilbert in large part was because of the education here. You think about that. You think about how much value to a community this district is. And, I believe that's such a crucial part of this community and needs to be both maintained and expanded. I have a passion for education. I have a passion for children to be able to learn and grow and have that opportunity that I've had to receive a quality education. The reason I'm here, I think, up here. I'm not the type that ever thought I'd want to run for any kind of political office, but I'm here because in looking at this, I felt like it was time for me to give something back. My children have received such a wonderful, just so much love and care from their teachers and their administrators that I think just go above and beyond what they could reasonably expect. We have 6-year-old twin boys, and both of them were speech delayed as twins. And so they've received a tremendous amount of personalized care from their educators, just that is fabulous. And it was part of that public education that is so important. And so I hope that you'll consider me, and I thank you again for letting me be here this evening.
Public education, I think, is what we're all here talking about tonight, and part of all of our closing statements. But I think that it can be viewed at many different levels. I think that you can go home and turn on the TV, and you'll probably see something about public education at a national level. I get NPR feeds every day about the number of education articles that are out there at a national level. On a more micro level, at a community level, you can get more involved. You can be part of a school board, or you can be active in the community and learn more about how to improve education for your students. And then on an individual level, which I'm sure we can all relate to, as part of a family, it's not just optional, but it's critical. I'm an aunt to 3 kids in the Gilbert Public School system, and it's important to me that I'm part of their educational life. I love speaking with them about what's going on in school and what their goals and aspirations are. Those are some of my happiest moments, and in line with that, I love reading to them. I'll go over to their house and spend as much time as they're willing to let me reading whatever books they've got. Part of that has led me to quite an affinity for an author that maybe you've heard of who goes by Dr. Seuss. And I thought I'd close with one of my favorite quotes from him. Unless someone like you cares a whole awful lot, nothing is going to get better. It's not. I'm not joking when I say I really do love Dr. Seuss. So I have a lot of quotes that I post all over the place, Dr. Seuss quotes. But this one really speaks to me, and I really do try and guide my life by it. And I think it's particularly relevant in this particular opportunity. Anyone can contribute. Anyone has that ability, but I think that it has to start at an individual level, and that's why I'm here tonight, and that's why I'm seeking this nomination, because somebody has to step up, and I've decided that I would like it to be me. So thank you very much for your time and for the opportunity to be here tonight.
Like many have said, my family was in the same boat. We moved here 20 years ago, in large part because of the reputation of Gilbert schools and Gilbert community, even though I worked in Chandler, and that's where my job took me. My children have benefited greatly from the fantastic teachers that are on the front line of Gilbert Public Schools every day, and I appreciate their work and the education that they've received there. I want to make Gilbert Public Schools continue to be great, to continue to be the choice that these parents in our district will make to send their kids to Gilbert Public Schools. I'll be honest, 5 years ago I had no idea how a school board worked or even who was on it or what they did. My involvement in schools was to volunteer with my children's teachers in their classroom, and that's as far as I thought it went. And as I look out on this audience, I think most of you are involved at a much higher level. I've gotten to know many of you over the years that I've been involved in board activities or district committees, but I don't think we're the typical ones out there. So as a board member, I would make it a priority to reach out to the thousands and tens of thousands of parents who were and are at one point like I was, who didn't realize what it means to be participating in a school board, and that they do have a voice, and that we have an obligation as board members to reach out to them. Real specifically, just my children went to Gilbert Junior 4 years ago. There was an incredible thrash in that school, and even today, a lot of the parents there don't understand what went on and what was going on and what the current truth of the situation was. And I think as a school board member, I would like to reach out to them and communicate and over-communicate to them what we as a board will be doing and how we can enhance their education for their children in Gilbert. And that's why I'm running for this position on the board.
Let me begin by thanking all of you for being here and thanking Elaine for her role tonight. Many of you there are some teachers in the room, many teachers in the room, some of whom have taught my children, and thank you for putting up with them. Many of you know that my wife and I are involved with a nonprofit that works in Africa. And in an interview a year or so ago, my wife told the story of sitting across the desk from a mother, or table from a mother, who had to make the literal choice of whether to spend her money to feed her child or to send her child to school. That was an actual decision. And she chose to send her child to school because she knew that that provided a way out. When we talk about education, it's a way that we all improve our lives. We need a board member who's ready to hit the ground running. Over the last several years, I feel like I have begun to meet that qualifications. I've had the CFO of our schools say straight out to me, Reed, you know school budgeting better than anybody that doesn't work for a school. I've had a member of the legislature tell me the same thing. I've recently been appointed to two of the brand new site committees, one as a parent and one as invited to represent as a community member. I've been participant on the superintendent's parent council. Rather than sit on the outside and try and talk about what's going on, I've chosen to get involved and try to be on the inside to understand what's going on. I believe that enables me to hit the ground running. As we move forward, one of the things that we need to do most is to empower our teachers. Yes, technology is a wonderful thing, and I come from a technology background. I support that technology. But teachers are the ones who make the difference. Tell me your favorite app that you used in high school. You can't, but you can all tell me your favorite teacher. We need to allow teachers to educate our children, and that's how we'll improve. Thank you.
It's okay now. We can all applaud.